Week 16 NFL reactions. Let's get into it. Let us start with the debut of Michael Penix as the Atlanta Falcons beat up the New York Giants 34-7. Quick thoughts on the Giants. Season's over, but with the Raiders winning over the Jaguars, now you guys control your fate. Do you want Shedeur Sanders? Do you want Cam Ward? It is time to start figuring that out. Malik Neighbors passes Odell Beckham Jr. for most receptions by a rookie in, a single season. Good for the Giants. They got a guy there. For the Falcons, Michael Penix. Even you look at the counting stats, not that impressive. 18-27, 202, 0 touchdowns, a pick that was on Kyle Pitts. I mean, just attribute that stat to Kyle Pitts, and a 73.4 passer rating. But the offense, it was so much better, so much more smooth because it had an unpredictability to it. With Kirk Cousins under center, you knew if he's under center and it's a run play, stretch to the right. He can't push off the Achilles. If you knew shotgun, running back to the right or left, pretty much going to be an inside zone there. The pistol was the only spot on the field where there was some unpredictability for the Falcons, but this is a brand new offense with Michael Penix at the head of things. Bijan Robinson getting some openings. Drake London, Darnell Mooney combining for good yardage days. Now, I'm not here to tell you that the Falcons are going to go win a Super Bowl or even multiple playoff games, but you can tell that just in one game, this offense looks so much more fluid, so much more special. I mean, reports came out before Penix took a snap that the Falcons have pretty much committed to cutting Kirk Cousins before March 1st because they don't want to lose the money. And I hope that Kirk finds a home somewhere, and I hope that, another year removed from the Achilles, he plays better. But Michael Penix is going to be their guy. I thought he looked like an NFL pro quarterback. I thought he looked really good. And considering the fact that, in these NFL practices, the backup quarterback doesn't get run with the ones at all, I thought he came in and played great. I thought he came in and played a really, really good football game. I think at home versus the Giants was a perfect spot to debut Penix, and he really showed out. And now with the Buccaneers loss that I talked about in a video that's already up on the channel, the Falcons control their own destiny. Sunday Night Football versus Washington, and then Carolina, who's frisky. Go 2-0 in those games, and you are hosting a playoff game this season. Now it'll probably be Minnesota or Detroit, and that is certainly a matchup, but hey, you will get to the dance. You control your fate. The Detroit Lions pick up a victory over the Chicago Bears 34-17 on the road. The Detroit Lions now 7-0 on the road this season. I talked about the Bears last week being 0-7 on the road. Weak mentality, weak culture, weak coaching staff. The Detroit Lions 7-0 on the road. Strong mentality, strong culture, a strong coaching staff. There's no doubt about it. Road wins tell you the story of a team's mental, a team's culture, and a team's coaching staff. Detroit, obviously, top tier in the league. Jared Goff has a fantastic day. 336 yards, 3 touchdowns, a 137 passer rating. The guy was absolutely slinging the rock. The offense is going to have to be special. I saw a graphic on Twitter that said Detroit had 22 players on IR or were out that were starting level players, and the next closest was 13. Detroit has been ravaged by injuries. Good news, Lions fans. Montgomery looks like he could track to be back for the divisional round. I do think Detroit will be there, whether that's from the 5 seed and going on the road to Atlanta or the Rams. I think Detroit could beat either of those teams. It'll more than likely be Atlanta or Tampa Bay if they were to storm back with records and how they're panning out right now. But, or if you get the bye week, Montgomery could just be back for your first home playoff game, whoever that's against. But that's really when I think they need him back. Jahmyr Gibbs is great, but there is something to be said for these two are really special together with more limited touches. Jahmyr Gibbs is going to get worked over the next couple of weeks, and he's a smaller back. Can he sustain that workload? For a short period of time, sure, but over and over again in these big playoff games, I'm not sure. Jameson Williams has that, really great 82-yard touchdown. Really, really good for Detroit there. I just thought the offense overall looked really good. And from a Bears perspective, Caleb Williams now, man, since week 2 of this season, 19 touchdowns to one interception. A lot of people are quick to hate on Caleb. And I get it. Jayden Daniels is having a phenomenal rookie season. He's going to be the rookie of the year. He's leading Washington to the playoffs. Bo Nix is leading Denver to the playoffs. I think that more than ever, what this season shows is coaching matters. Caleb Williams is already on his second head coach. We're still in his rookie year. He's already on his second offensive coordinator. We're still in his rookie year. And come next year, it'll be third head coach and third offensive coordinator. So when I look at what Caleb Williams is doing, I don't judge it on the same level of Jayden Daniels, who was given a Cliff Kingsbury, or Bo Nix, who was given a Sean Payton. I just don't. I look at it as this is a guy with a lot of talent, but nobody to help shape it. And I think the Bears obviously are looking ahead to the draft at this point. How good of a draft pick could we get? Could we get Caleb another tackle? Get some protection on this line? And what do we do at head coach? Because a report came out that Ben Johnson reportedly intrigued by the Bears job. Played them twice this year, looked at Caleb, thought I could work with that. Looked at the weapons of Swift, Keenan Allen, Odunze, DJ Moore, and thought I could work with that. The Bears, I think a lot of people are, selling stock on Caleb and this team and the talent here. And I think we have gone a little far. I think the overreacting has gone a little far. I've seen Caleb Williams called a bust in a redraft. How low would he fall? Like, my thing is, if you liked Caleb Williams pre-draft, you should still take him number one. Because there's no way you look at that coaching staff of Eberflus that was there originally and the guys that are in now, this isn't a coaching staff either, and think that's on Caleb. Again, since week 2, the guy has 19 touchdowns to 1 interception. He'll be just fine. The Cincinnati Bengals kept their season alive with a 24-6 victory over the Cleveland Browns. Listen, the Browns, pretty much when they started DTR, they told you they were trying to lose games. I think the more interesting to come out of this, week was Myles Garrett saying he wants to be a Brown for life, but there needs to be a plan for winning. With the Raiders' victory, the Browns might slide into that number 2 draft slot potentially, and we could see Cam Ward in Cleveland next year, which I think would be huge for Cleveland. Because just a week ago, I thought, did the Browns take a shot on Jalen Milroe? The athletics are there, but you have to do some developing. Now, all of a sudden, they could be in contention for Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. And it's like, the Browns could be good next year. Because again, we watched this same roster with Joe Flacco go on a playoff run last year. They've got the guys. And now they brought in Jerry Jeudy, who's 5th in the NFL in receiving yards this year. I think the Browns are one of those true a quarterback away teams. And for Cincinnati, Joe Burrow, just another freaking excellent day, man. 23 of 30, 3 touchdowns, 252 yards, a 134.3 passer rating. Joe Burrow, kind of an early favorite of mine for MVP next year, because I think that the Bengals will be a much better team next year. They're going to lose out on Higgins, but another draft, Chase Brown looks like the guy. You'll have some younger wide receivers that you could develop. I think that they'll be all right. I think that next year, if they start off to a slow start, Zach Taylor's probably going to go. I think the pressure is really, really going to be on this team. But in this game, they kept their playoff hopes alive. The defense played fine, but the defense was playing against a Browns team who was virtually given up and starting DTR. So how much stake do you really put in that? Not a lot. Jamar Chase, 6 for 97 and a touchdown. The guy now has 16 touchdowns on the year. He's competing to be the wide receiver triple crown. He has already, at this point, had the best wide receiver season in Cincinnati Bengals history from a totality perspective. He's 2 touchdowns away from being the sole possession guy of their touchdown record, 1 away from tying it. Like Jamar Chase, I talked about this on the previous channel, in the offseason. Why would you not pay him? Why would you not extend him? That money, that price tag, it's only going to go up. Like, this is a top 2, no doubt, wide receiver in the league. Yet, here we are. They didn't pay him. T. Higgins, 8 for 58 and a touchdown. Yoshivas, 3 for 53 and a touchdown. Burrow spreads the wealth around. The Bengals keep their season alive, and now next Saturday's game versus Denver has a lot of weight to it. The Indianapolis Colts beat the Tennessee Titans 38-30. A fun game here, but at the end of the day, the Colts, I guess, are still playing for something. Anthony Richardson threw the ball 11 times in this game. So Shane Steichen has said, hey, we're alive for the playoffs. What I'm going to do is take the ball out of Anthony Richardson's hands, and I'm going to put it in Jonathan Taylor's hands, and we're going to give him 29 carries. He's going to have 218 yards and 3 freaking tugs on the day. Shout out JT, man. What a day. Anthony Richardson, 9 for 70 and a touchdown. This is the rushing offense right here in this game that so many people were so high on the Colts for, because when you pair a tandem of Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson together, they can, combine for 300 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns on the day. That's what they did in this game. So I think Shane Steichen is starting to figure out a better way to have this offense run scheme-wise, because we knew Steichen was a great offensive mind. What he did with Jalen Hurts and that Eagles offense in 2022, and what he did last year, this guy with Gardner Minshew was a dropped pass away from going to the playoffs. So, I had no doubt that he could figure things out with Richardson, but this is why I was kind of against benching him in the first place. These are growing pains that you have to go through. The Colts were never going to win a Super Bowl this year, so why not just figure this out earlier in the year? Hell, if you figure this out earlier in the year and you're not playing Joe Flacco, maybe instead of 7-8, you're 8-7. And all of a sudden you're looking at the Broncos like, hey, you lose to the Bengals and now we're definitely in. And the Colts still have a shot, don't get me wrong, but the shot would have been much better. When it comes to the receiving game, nothing really crazy to talk about, 11 pass attempts, but I do think that Shane Steichen, Anthony Richardson, this is going to work. I think it's going to work a lot more next year. I give him until next Thanksgiving before I decide if he's our guy. And for the Titans, listen, they're done. The season's over. They got Mason Rudolph out there. The guy threw 3 picks in this game. Titans are looking forward to 2025. The Los Angeles Rams pick up a 19-9 victory on the road in New York, a 1 o'clock slot. I feel like I've seen the Rams travel to the East Coast and play at 1 o'clock a lot more this year than past years. And these games all traditionally kind of go the same. The Rams offense is sloppy, kind of feels a little sluggish, maybe that they don't want to be there, maybe the time zone's affecting them. And then Matthew Stafford pulls a rabbit out of the hat and they win the game. 13-0 in the fourth quarter was the score there. So that is where the Rams won the game. Stafford, 14 of 19 for 110 yards, a touchdown, a pick, and an 83.2 passer rating. Nothing crazy. Leaned on Kyron Williams, leaned on the run game. The Rams defense is starting to really come around. Verse and Fisk out of Florida State, like that is 2 guys that are holding down that defensive line. Curl, another really good player. They got to get a lockdown corner, whether that is through the draft or in the offseason for agency. They got to bring in one of those. But their defense is legit. Again, I'll say this. I've said it before. I'll say it again. The Rams are a threat to go on a run. Stafford, you could argue, is the best quarterback in the NFC. McVay, you could argue, is the best head coach in the NFC. You have a combination of guys like that you could argue. I mean, you have a puncher's chance in every game. And then you look at Puka, Kyron, Cooper Kupp, now Tyler Higbee back, the offensive line healthy, the defense performing with some of these young guys. And it's like, man, the Rams can go on a run. The NFC feels pretty wide open. Detroit with their injuries. We saw a little bit of weakness in Philadelphia today. How would they guard 2 wide receivers? I think if the Rams and Eagles played again, it would be closer than that Sunday Night Football game. You look at, obviously, teams like the Falcons that are going to be the 4 seed. It's like the Rams are probably better than them. Minnesota, the Rams beat them earlier this year. Green Bay, can you force Jordan Love into some turnovers? Like, there's certainly a path that plays out where the Rams come out and win the NFC. And I'm not afraid to say that. For the Jets, Rodgers has played pretty solid over the last month. I'm not going to lie. And just looking at the quarterback class, looking at them with 4 wins right now, I wouldn't be shocked if Rodgers is the guy again next year. They bring in a new coaching staff, try and get all on the same page before the start of next season and say, what could we do? Now, I'm not going to bet on them to do a lot, but could they be a playoff team with the talent on their roster? I think they could. The Washington Commanders all but lock up a playoff spot with a 36-33 victory over the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, I know a lot of people know Eagles fan here. What are my thoughts on the game from an Eagles perspective? I'm going to be honest, not much. Truthfully, I do believe if Jalen Hurts didn't get hurt, we win that game. I mean, the defense forced 5 turnovers. If we didn't have Kenny Pickett out there, who certainly struggles to run an NFL offense, and the play calling just became so make Kenny Pickett beat us and stack the box against Saquon, which again, I don't blame Dan Quinn and the Commanders for doing. It certainly worked, but the Eagles put up 21 points in the first quarter off of those turnovers, and Jalen put them in a really good position there, but then they didn't find the end zone again. And so, I do think the Eagles would have won this game. You win 10 straight, you lose one to your divisional rival on the road who's going to the playoffs. It is what it is. I'm sure the Eagles will be fine there. They're a Devonta Smith, sure-handed guy, drop away from winning this game. So the Eagles bounce back, one more win, and they win the division. They're pretty much locked into the 2 seed now. The hopes of the 1 seed are kind of gone, but again, I have full confidence that they will be just fine. The Commanders, Jayden Daniels locked up the Rookie of the Year here. The Philadelphia Eagles defense was healthy for the most part. Josh Sweat got hurt later in this game, but I mean, those injuries, they come and go. The Eagles D-line is, one of the deepest in the league. Jayden Daniels, though, 5 touchdowns in this game, a 99 passer rating, 81 rushing yards, locked up the Rookie of the Year. And if you're a Commanders fan, yeah, the Eagles were down to their backup quarterback, but we had to win the fourth quarter 22-6. You have to feel really, really freaking good about where you're at if you're a Commanders fan, because a couple weeks ago, it looked like they hit a wall. It looked like the Cliff Kingsbury offense. Here we go again. This team's not going to be able to move the ball, and we're cooked. And then Jayden Daniels, the last 2 weeks versus New Orleans and now at home versus Philly, has put the team on his back, backpacked up, and said, I'm carrying this team to the promised land. I'm taking us to the playoffs. I'm going to win us this fucking game. And that's exactly what he did. Jayden Daniels is an absolute stud. There's no other way to put it. That is the only thought that needs to be centered leaving this game. And I go on social media, and obviously I'm a little bit more on Eagles Twitter, but I hate when I'm seeing it. Well, if Jalen Hurts, whatever if Jalen Hurts. Yeah, probably. Probably. If the Eagles had Jalen Hurts instead of Kenny Pickett in a game that they lost by 3 points, they probably win. Yes. But does that mean we need to ignore what Jayden Daniels has done the last couple weeks? Because the kid is on fire. The kid is carrying Washington to the playoffs. And because Green Bay and Minnesota are so good, they're probably going to be a 7 seed. And we're probably going to get to see this matchup again. But Jayden Daniels, man, shout out to him. I mean, look at all the receivers here that are catching passes. Look at the discrepancy in these 2 lists. The Eagles list, 4 names. Alamani Zaccheaus, 2 touchdowns. Terry McLaurin, obviously he's great. De'Ami Brown, Brian Robinson Jr., Jamison Crowder, who I didn't even know was still in the NFL, Jeremy McNichols, Luke McCaffrey, Zach Ertz. John Bates gets a target. Like, look at who Jayden's doing it with. This kid is special. This kid is absolutely special and locked up the Rookie of the Year. Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers officially end Kyler Murray in the Arizona Cardinals season, a 36-30 victory. Bryce Young, man, he's here. Dave Canales the last couple of years, Geno Smith, Baker Mayfield, and now Bryce Young. I said this going into the season. The Dave Canales signing was huge. For this team. And some people, especially in the Buccaneers fandom, were kind of like, actually, Cohen's better, and the Buccaneers offense has been good, but Dave Canales, quarterback whisperer, Bryce Young, succeeding now, Chuba Hubbard, I mean, they extended him, 25 for 152 and 2 touchdowns, the game winner in overtime. You look at who Bryce Young's throwing the ball to, Adam Thielen, David Moore, Tommy Tremble, Jalen Coker. You talk about a team that should be in on T. Higgins. Guy played at Clemson, Carolina native. Call him up and offer him a freaking bag. Because Bryce Young is winning these games without help against playoff level competition. The Cardinals were a playoff team before today. I mean, they weren't fully in the picture, but they had been in first in the division this year. You win this game, you're 8-7, and now you're like, they had something on the line. They were playing their asses off. And Bryce Young, man, he's just proven the doubters wrong. And I love to see it because I was one of those. Bryce Young's the number 1 in his class, and obviously it's CJ Stroud. But the jury's out on Bryce Young versus Anthony Richardson at this point. So we'll see where that ends up. But this was really, really great stuff by the Panthers. For the Cardinals, it sucks. James Conner gets banged up. They were running the ball all over the Panthers, and then they couldn't get it going with Michael Carter, which I understand how that happens, but it really sucks. Their offensive philosophy really had to get changed. Marvin Harrison, 4 for 39. You know, he hasn't stepped up and been the weapon that Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas have been for their teams this year. Maybe it's just going to take him a little longer. Maybe. You know, it's too soon to say bust, but maybe he wasn't the consensus number 1 overall wide receiver that a lot of people had him tagged as. Kyler, you probably got to be better in this spot, man. Playoff hopes on the line, and you lose on the road to a 4-11 team. I get it that they've been playing much better, and I've been the first up here to say that they've been playing better than 4-11, but at the end of the day, they're 4-11. They're 3-6 at home, and you have to go beat them. And again, what did I talk about with road records earlier? Strong mindset, strong culture, good foundation. Cardinals are 2-5. You show me a team's road record, I'll tell you about that team. And the Cardinals, frauds. The Minnesota Vikings went into Seattle and beat the Seahawks 27-24. Have yourself a day, Sam Darnold. 246 for 3 touchdowns and a 112 passer rating. Justin Jefferson, 10 for 144 and 2 tugs. Addison, 5 for 35 and a touchdown. I mean, this was Darnold to Jefferson all day long. And you're the Vikings. That matchup, week 18 with Detroit really looming right here. They're keeping pace, and it's like with Philly's loss today, the Vikings, the NFC playoffs might go through Minnesota, which is just fucking absurd to say. Because you remember, everybody had this team pegged as 4th in the division. 4th in the division, the Vikings. Maybe 7 wins, myself included. And now they are 13-2, 6-1 on the road, mind you. Sam Darnold should be comeback player of the fucking year. Came back from irrelevancy. I mean, Joe Flacco won it last year and he came back off of his couch. So Sam Darnold needs to win this fucking award this year. And you look at what they're doing and you start to think, how do they not bring Darnold back? Now, barring a first-round playoff collapse, how does this team not run it back? How do you look at your players and go, you know what? We're actually better off without Sam Darnold and with a rookie. The guy who just carried us to a 14-15 win season potentially. A potential 1 seed. Potential NFC championship game. Potential Super Bowl. The playoffs will really dictate it. I know that's what it's going to be. What can you do for me in the big spot? You know, Johnny come lately. But the Vikings are legit. The Vikings are so legit, man. They're scary. They truthfully are scary. And with the injuries to Detroit, if they get home field versus Philly, the path is there. The path is there for the Vikings. This Brian Flores defense, they came through late, getting the interception on Geno. And the Vikings, they're legit, man. Legit contenders. And then you look at Seattle. And I think, again, the roster's just a quarterback upgrade away. And Geno played fine. 314, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks, 96.5 passer rating. But that last interception on that last drive, man, you're not seeing Mahomes do that. You're not seeing Josh Allen do that. You go down to Matt Stafford. I don't think you're seeing him do that. I don't think there's a better guy on the market, but I do think in spots like this, in the big games, Geno Smith holds you back. You know, he got outplayed by Darnold today, got outplayed by Jordan Love a couple of weeks ago. Just against the best teams, you're particularly down in the quarterback matchup. So you got to make up for it elsewhere. And when you're playing elite teams like Minnesota, they just can't close the gap. Close game, fun game. The NFL, the talent gap is only so deep. Jackson Smith and Jigba, the breakout season continues. 8 for 95 and a touchdown. So all the wise guys that were still not giving up on JSN, congrats. You won that argument. But for Seattle, 8-7 now. playoff hopes really dwindling. The game, I believe they play the Rams week 18. But I also think if the Rams win next week, correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section, but like strength of schedule or conference wins, division wins, something, the Rams pretty much lock up the division with a win over Arizona next Saturday. So tough season for Seattle to potentially end on that. But, you know, they got a bright future with Mike McDonald in that defense, for sure. I think this was just more a story of how good the Vikings are and how good the Sam Darnold to Justin Jefferson connection is. A sentence I didn't expect to be saying, but the Buffalo Bills survived the New England Patriots 24-21. The story of this game is pretty simple to me. The Bills, they win the game. James Cook is excellent. Josh Allen has a bad game after being fantastic for the last 2 months, and they still win. The talent there, just too great. Buffalo, still a Super Bowl contender. For New England, you look at this game and you look at Drake May. We went on the road to the team that has been perpetually the best team in our division with Kayshon Boutte and Austin Hooper and Hunter Henry. And this guy almost dragged us to a victory. You have to feel really fucking good if you're a Patriots fan about Drake May, because this kid's the truth. And really, it's the simplest game to dissect. Buffalo, too talented, too much, even on their off days, can win games. Drake May, the real deal, and Patriots fans should be happy. Plain and simple. Our classic shitfest of the weekend saw the Las Vegas Raiders defeat the Jacksonville Jaguars 19-14. Honestly, a devastating win for the Las Vegas Raiders, because now they're like 6th in the draft pick odds. They're probably not going to get Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward, all because they beat Mac Jones and the Jaguars. The Jaguars are now back in the running for Travis Hunter. This was just a joke. I mean, shout out the rookies. Brock Bowers, 11 for 99. Brian Thomas, 9 for 132 and a touchdown. Each of these teams drafted a rookie weapon in the first round this past draft, and each of them look like cornerstones of the future. Great for them there. But what are we doing? What are we doing if we're the Raiders winning this game? I don't know. I don't know. The Miami Dolphins pick up a 29-17 victory over the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers knew before this game that their season was over, but they did go out there and try. The Dolphins, the dink and dunk offense with Devon Achane, again, really working well. 190 all-purpose yards and a touchdown. Tyreek Hill, a couple bad drops in this game, but the Dolphins figured out a way to win, and now they're like right there on the brink of playoff contention. I talked about the Bengals potentially getting in and the Colts potentially getting in. The Dolphins win out and the Broncos lose out. The Dolphins are in. So we'll see how that works out. They got a game versus the Browns, who looked really inept on offense and are trying to lose coming up. And then the Jets, week 18. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, spoiler to the Dolphins season. Maybe, could be the case. But, the Dolphins, if you're a Dolphins fan, you probably got to think if we had Tua all season, we're probably in the playoffs. But I still question the ceiling of this team. They feel like a team that could perpetually be in the playoffs, but never win it all. They, to me, feel like the Chiefs when they had Alex Smith. It's like, hey, we have a quarterback who's good, a roster that's great, a coach that looks like he's pretty decent. Obviously, Andy Reid's way better than Mike McDaniel, but my point being, we can consistently be in the wild card weekend. It'd be a shock if we made it to the divisional weekend, and we're never going to make it to a conference championship weekend. That's pretty much how I feel about the Dolphins and the 49ers. Dude, again, Brock Purdy makes some bad throws at the end of this game. The interception was really, really bad. And if I'm in that building and this guy's coming to my front office this offseason saying I want $50 to $60 million a year, I want the Trevor Lawrence contract, I want the Tua contract, I look at him and I go, no. And I get it from an agent perspective, from a Brock Purdy perspective, like that's where the bar is. But if I'm the Niners, it's like, Kyle Shanahan has shown an ability to get Super Bowls with Jimmy Garoppolo, man. And I'm not going to handicap this roster by making the same mistakes that the Jaguars made and that the Dolphins made, giving primetime contracts to mid quarterbacks. You want the Baker Mayfield deal? 3 over 100? No problem. That's yours, Brock. We'll give you that yesterday. But you come into my office talking about 180 million, 200 million guaranteed, $55 to $60 million a year. Best of luck on the open market after next season. because I just want to give it to him. I just absolutely would not give it to him. You know, not a shot in hell. Not a shot in hell. But those are my thoughts on week 16 of the NFL season. We are 2 weeks away from the playoffs. I cannot fucking wait, man. The holiday season is coming. So we'll be up here tonight to talk about Packers and Saints. Tomorrow's Tuesday tier list. I'll be here Christmas after the Texans Ravens game to talk about both of those games. Thursday Night Football, Bears Seahawks, will be here for that. Saturday coverage of those two games of Bengals Broncos and Cardinals Rams. We'll be here to talk about that. Then, of course, next Sunday, the schedule, the NFL train rolls on. We just recently passed 100 subscribers. I want to thank you guys for that. We're now on the road to 200. So if you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, hit that button, hit the like button. I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.